smiling, you'll not find love. Only sleepless nights. I'm just a ghost of the man I was, too weary to fight.
Hey guys, welcome to Beyond the Beard podcast, a podcast dedicated to discovering true masculinity. Thanks for joining us. Guys, how we doing today?
Good, man. Hanging other than the Packers crap in the bed again. It's the Vikings.
Hey man, my Broncos did not do, they did about the same.
Dude, but they're, honestly though, the Packers are the youngest team in the league. So I expect stupidity and immaturity, which is what they give you every single week without fail. But the Broncos they're 1 to 2 years away from being like that team
Legit.
you don't want to play. Yeah. They're already a team I don't want to play because that defense shows up and Bo Nix is a stud, man. So you feel pretty good. Dude.
I love it.
Mike, how about you, man?
Where am I on this stupid thing?
I don't know. Where are you? Where are any of us? Are we asking philosophically? Where are you in life, Mike?
I could dive into that.
Please don't, actually.
Philosophically, metaphorically, physically, I am behind the computer. I'm okay. We are done with the busy season, I hope. So hopefully I can get back to work. Well, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
That's when you know you're busy. You're like, oh, work's back. This is good.
No, work is what killed me. I got burnt out to the point where I actually requested some time off. So, yeah.
You know, it is recommended that you do take some time off every once in a while.
I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
Yeah. Well, guys, we're going to do some reaction today. Last week, I came across an article that I thought was interesting. It is written by a female author, and I came across this article. It's a little bit of a clickbait article, I'll be honest. But with that being said, I do think if it's clickbait, that means people are more than likely going to engage with it. And so I think, especially with a headline, boys who grow up to be well-adjusted men are taught these 20 things by their parents.
Do you want me to pull it up? It's on the stand-up one. Sorry.
Yeah, why don't you pull that up, buddy?
There you go.
There it is. Yeah.
I didn't realize it was a female author. I didn't see that.
It is absolutely a female author.
Okay, interesting.
Which, I really try to be fair on this, because when I hear, there's a lot of people out there who are like, well, men shouldn't be able to speak on, reproductive rights or whatever. You don't have a uterus. You can't talk on this. And so, like, I understand the sentiment, right? And I try not to go down that road with this article going, well, you're a woman. You can't possibly speak about what, you need to teach men, all of these things. However,
I never understood that. Sorry. Rabbit trail.
Why?
I never understood you're not X, so you can't speak on topic.
It's an argument of authority. That's all it is. It's just a fallacy.
I know, and I hate it. I don't understand how people
to an
fall
extent.
into that one.
I think there are exceptions, right? So for instance, if you are talking about something medically, right? Like talking to a doctor, right? A doctor is going to have more credence than, let's say, you or me.
That's a great example,
right?
How about I argue that one?
Go for it.
I used to deliver medical supplies. I was a glorified UPS driver carrying heavy equipment that did things and helped people die.
Okay.
The number of doctors I had ask me how many liters of oxygen the patient should be on and what I thought they needed is insane.
You know why that is, right?
Because they're stupid.
No, it's because
they're thinking I'm carrying their medical documents with me, and which I'm not allowed to do because that's a HIPAA violation.
So they're used to pharma reps. So pharma reps come in, and so I helped run an orthopedics department, so I know a little bit about this. So there are tons of different products out there, right? Anchors, screws, machines that help docs do these different surgeries. Okay. The docs don't actually do all of the running of the machine, or they're not experts on the machine. And so when they go into a surgery, there are plenty of times where they have to call the rep. The rep comes in and is like the advisor or goes, hey, do this, or hey, do this. So the reps know all of the specifications, the tightness, all of those things. So the doctors understand like how to actually do it, but they're looking for the specs to do it too. Kind of like an engineer. So in that sense, that's why the docs would ask you that question, because they're used to that kind of thing. Now, I won't disagree with you that doctors may be lacking in some knowledge that you would think they should know.
Yeah. I think like even with that like leader's flow for a patient, there's no way on God's green earth I'm gonna know what
camera.
You
just have it zoomed in on Tim's face.
So, dude, I'm sorry.
That's
so,
why. So if you see
I'm
that,
thinking, I'll do that. So what I mean is like, yeah, I said stupid. That was very harsh.
No, I get it.
But hold on. Even to what you're explaining, it's like, okay, that's valid, but that would still never disqualify, or that would never make the argument of the guy going in, I'm a doctor, you're a rep, you can't speak to this, because it's the knowledge that is the thing that they are arguing around.
It's hard.
So when they get into conversations like this, like, you can't talk about my uterus because you don't have it. I'm like, no, but I know how the reproductive system works in a human being. I know what the consequences are. I know all of the stuff, or I know a lot of it. I can have a logical conversation about the thing.
Agreed.
Even though I don't hold certificates that would indicate.
And I think that's the kind of the point we're trying to make is this idea of, again, just because you may have authority in something doesn't automatically make you right. And that's the problem with an argument of authority.
Yes.
And that's why it's like, just because you're a female doesn't mean you can't give me, it doesn't even mean the advice you're going to give me on raising a boy is going to be bad.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like I think that's what you're trying to get to is, okay, we don't want to discount this because it's written by a female. That's idiotic. That would be, that's what it sounded like you were trying to bring up.
That is exactly what I'm trying to say.
You shouldn't discount what people say because they're a guy or a girl. You still need to listen to what they have to say, and that doesn't make them wrong.
Yeah.
Well, you go ahead.
I mean, again, it's the idea of I have a degree in history. That does not mean everything I say about history is going to be right. There have been many times where I was like going over something with my students, and all of a sudden I had this thing in my head. I'm like, because the kid asked me like, "Hey, where'd you hear that?" I was like, "Where did I hear that?" And we'd go and look it up, and I'd be like, oh, it's actually slightly different than that. Or, we learned something as kids and that's what everybody thought. And then all of a sudden we do more research and we realize, wait a minute, we actually have conflicting sources that say that actually didn't happen. And then you're like, oh, okay, oops, we need to rethink. You know what I mean? And so you should never just assume that you're right because you have authority in the subject.
Especially like our generation. I've noticed, like Tiff and I we're talking about that literally today or yesterday. We're like, the things that we've had to fact check that our parents told us growing up, we're like, we've never actually verified that ourselves. Let's Google it, and we look up things like, nope. The number of things we've been told like growing up is just wrong is insane to me.
Well, but part of that is because we live in a generation in time where you can literally Google everything.
Yeah.
Like our parents didn't have that. Yeah. So what did they pass on? What was told to them?
Was told to them.
Right.
Exactly.
That oral tradition, right?
All that going to say, like Matt's approach of like, even though he has a degree in a field, it's like the fact that he knew to go and
I think it's just the more I learn, the more I learn how much I don't know.
Exactly. Well, and
even in areas of specialty. And so I think that's what we're trying to get at is this idea of we want to look at this article, we want to look at it from the point of view of like from our point of view and comparing it to what we believe about masculinity, what we think about it, what we've been talking about. So let's go ahead and jump in here. Mike, why don't you start scrolling down here?
Sorry, the rabbit trail thing.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Good, man. I think it's an important. It is important because I think a lot of media, a lot of political, a lot of even like any advertisement, right? Like how many times do they bring on a doctor actor? They're not actually a doctor; they just portray a doctor, and that in and of itself, right, adds credence and credentials to the
white lab coat.
like just even subconsciously.
Or why do you bring in celebrities? It's to
exactly.
Even though that to me that takes away credence, but maybe that's just me.
Right, absolutely, yeah. like what do you know about politics? You literally your whole career is pretending.
Yeah,
I guess they do know about politics.
So let's look at the first point. So again, 20 things that boys should be well-adjusted men are taught by their parents.
All right.
So go ahead and scroll down to the
highlights.
So number one, there are many ideas of what it means to be a man.
But the test of manliness is how you treat others,
especially those smaller and weaker.
Thank you. I don't know why I can't see that well.
You need
because the monitor is 10 feet away from you and it's tiny.
So again, the true measure of a man is how you treat those around you.
Oh man, I see. I when I read this article, and this is the first one, I kind of went back and forth on this because I do think it is a measure of who you are as a person. I don't know if it's a man, but it is a personal measure of like how you're treating others.
That's what I was gonna say. Was kind of like
this is a very vague statement.
It is a very vague statement. It's very like, but to me, it's like there are many ideas of what it means to be a man, but don't forget to stop signs. Like, okay, but everybody should do that, right? Like,
yeah.
Well, like how you treat other like. So a woman who's in power, she's not measured by how she treats those that are less. I guess to me, it just seems like this is more of a well-adjusted human, not a well-adjusted man.
I've got a feeling we're going to find a lot of that in this.
Yeah.
Like, sure. We could probably also discuss, like, when we discussed, like, masculinity versus femininity, like, there's a lot of crossover traits. But masculinity is how a man approaches caring for others.
Yes.
Femininity is how a woman approaches caring for others.
Okay.
Right? So we could look at this and say, okay, if true manliness is how you treat others, especially those smaller than you. Okay, how should a man treat those who are smaller and weaker than themselves? Like, what is the masculine?
And I want to point out, so just in that statement, what is the author acknowledging?
That men are stronger,
right? And typically, this is smaller, so men are typically bigger, right? So
size,
size-wise, right? So I think that is an acknowledgement of. That's a component of masculinity, and we've talked about it.
Yeah.
Right. But those are pieces that are kind of endemic to men.
Yeah.
Right. And it is important as a man that you are kind of aware of that, and then acting, in a way that's controlled, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a way that honors others, that uplifts others, that builds up others, things like that.
I don't know if that's the only part I got hung up on was the truest test of a man.
I'm fair. Like, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I'd call that
the truest test,
because to me, like my first thought on that number one is I love that
test,
because
not the truest, but the true test of manliness is how.
The true test of manliness. So that's like the true test of manliness is.
They're trying to give a little bit flowery language in there.
Yeah,
I guess.
I don't know. Like, to me, I do think that's a big part of masculinity. We've talked about that, having control. So strength, but under control, but. You have to have the strength first. It's like you can't sit here and tell me that you're peaceful when you weigh 35 pounds and you couldn't fight a breeze, a stiff breeze. I think that's a little bit different, right?
I think so.
So to me, it's like I don't know if that's the true test of the man, because in order to, and again, I don't want to say that all men have to be Conan the Barbarian or anything like that. And that's where I think I was struggling with it, was going back and forth on that.
Sorry, I'm going to try to keep us moving because we got 20 of these things.
Okay,
no, it's okay.
Let's we move on.
But I mean, great advice. Like, I think for anybody.
Sure,
I definitely think I the first thing that came to my mind with that one, just to end this, is teaching my son to hold the door for people behind him.
Sure.
Not because they're weak or anything, but it teaches you a way to respect the people around you.
Yeah.
And because they're human beings, they deserve that. So
I agree.
All right, you aren't a man, you're a human.
That again, this goes back to like. All these points could be a person. Like,
like you're not a woman, you're a human.
I'm opposed to my children, and I have daughters. So, I mean, okay. So,
can you scroll down to the paragraph part?
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so the most important qualities of a human can possess are kindness, empathy, and loving heart. I would disagree with that.
I would disagree.
The concept of gender socialization explores how societal expectations of masculinity can limit boys' emotional expression, empathy, and understanding of their own needs.
Well, and so with this one, and this is what I thought about on this one when I read it, was like, okay. Yes, guys should have these characteristics. Mm-hmm. The way they're displayed, though, is very different than what women and girls are going to display. Right? It's going to look different. And so for the author to go, well, you need to have these things. Okay, but they look different than what you are expecting them to look like.
And did you notice she emphasizes the love aspect?
Sure.
Do men? Here's an interesting question. What do men value more, love or respect?
Yeah, respect.
You can look at every single time they've done these little surveys in the last, a man and a woman, like, what would you rather have, respect or love? If you had to pick one.
Yeah.
And it's like 80% of the time the men pick respect and 80% of the time the women pick love.
Yeah.
And so she's approaching this from a female standpoint. And so that's how she's looking at it. To me, I'm kind of like, okay, loving, like, okay, I get that, like kind and empathy. And I'm like, I'm sorry, like, of course there's a place for that, but I don't think those are as important to men as they are to women.
Yeah.
Like if you had a mother and a father, you telling me you wouldn't want the dad to be a little more on the stricter side? Like I'm a teacher. I can tell you that right now. I've seen the kids whose parents are a little bit less strict.
Well, again, I think it's more of how it's expressed.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that.
But again, you could be loving and be a strict parent too, and that's not what I'm saying. But I don't know. There's something about it that just kind of like.
It's this emphasis on these more I will like tender aspects of humanity, right? Which guys don't normally trend towards.
Well, we don't display them the same way. Like,
Exactly.
I am loving, kind, and caring, but I come off as a jerk a lot. Like, and that's fair.
Well,
That's
I'm
true.
bra-
Think about how many times, guys,
like,
we poke and prod each other and
we
hit
do,
each
and
other.
we do things that, yeah. So the way we express things and the way we have empathy, it's like those are going to be portrayed differently. I do think it's important that the second paragraph says, like, a study was done that, you know, men do need to be more aware of the full spectrum of emotions.
And I agree with that.
I agree with
That
that
is
too.
a
That's
fully
fine.
healthy human being, though, too. Like,
Yeah. Again, it's
everybody needs to be a
it's
healthy
being
human
a
being.
fully healthy
Yeah.
human being.
And
Yeah.
I think a lot of that comes from like the stereotypes that we've talked about before, how like our previous generation is like, no, you can't have emotions, you can't cry, you bottle up inside until you die at 90 years old.
What's
which I think
interesting
is the
about that
dumbest thing
I was
ever.
never really around that.
I wasn't either.
And maybe I,
but
like-
I think it's just it's the stereotype that
That's what I was going to say.
people are pushing,
I
but
don't
I'm
know
like,
if
I
that's
haven't
actually
met anybody
true.
like that. So.
I don't remember.
Celebi.
I don't remember encountering a man who told me like, "You're not allowed to cry." I did have my dad who told me, "You can't cry about that, dude."
Or you
Right,
can't
like-
cry right now.
Yeah, you can't cry
Like-
right now. Hold that in, like, dude. You don't need to cry
So-
because there was a bad call.
Yeah, I mean,
Right,
I'll be the outlier here. I definitely have heard it from people, and
Okay.
even I've seen people who that they grew up hearing that. That, you know, more I don't even like to say stoic,
Because stoic's a little different.
it is different,
It is
right?
different.
It's about managing your emotions, not bottling them up.
Which is, again, that's a healthy
Mhm.
thing, man. Like, I do hate when they talk about like, oh, they need to be able to express their emotions. I'm like, no, men need to learn how to handle their emotions, just like women do, and they're going to
People
look
need
different.
to handle their
People-
Yeah,
emotions.
people. But again, it comes down to people. But like men, we tend to compartmentalize things. Now, not so much in the way that, again, shoving things down, but like you said, that's not the time for it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Like there's like, you don't get to start bursting into tears when we need you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Oh, that's good. I like that. Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing is, I'm sorry, like there are points and aspects in time where men are needed,
Yep.
and you need to be able to compartmentalize as a man to step out of that, and then later, yeah, you can share that, and you can get through, like work through it and stuff like that. But I don't know. Again, and I think I'm glad you pointed that out though, that you have heard it from other people, because I don't know, I didn't hear it as a kid. I didn't hear it. I mean,
yeah.
like,
No. I mean, there.
Should we go to the next one?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the clock.
No,
Yeah,
we're
no,
good.
you're good. You're
Okay,
good.
sorry.
I was just gonna say let's keep it rolling. But
Yeah.
yeah.
keep it rolling, because a lot. But
Mainly,
the thing is,
I only try to push them because like we've had these conversations before. I'm like, we're gonna have
yeah, and a lot of
so we're
these,
trying
just to let you know,
react
a
to
lot of them I feel are duplicated later on.
Oh,
Probably.
for
I
sure.
feel like they're mentioning
Okay.
the same thing over and over. In many parts of the world, girls don't have as many rights as boys.
Okay,
Now,
cool. Life's not fair.
also in the past, I teach history.
This
Talk to kids
isn't
about-
fair, but it's important to recognize the inequality. I don't get to play in the NBA. That's not fair. Hey, I'm 6'3". I'm an X percentile. I have a better chance genetically to be in the NBA. That's not fair. Sorry, that's my little rant. I hate it when people bring up fairness in anything in the world.
My question is,
terrible.
again, it comes down to like, I would love to hear, like, what are you talking about? Because would she say in America that men and women aren't equal? Because I'm sorry, that's bullcrap.
Well, hold on.
like,
How
I'm
does
sorry,
this?
that's
How, my
garbage.
question is, how does this pertain to boys growing up to be well-adjusted men?
I think what she's trying to get at is the recognition that there are inequalities, and that maybe she's trying to insinuate that it's men's responsibility to, I don't know, rectify that or
So
do something about it, or recognize
I don't live in
it.
Saudi Arabia.
yeah,
so-
I feel like, okay, my 2 cents is this is, if there's any subtle language that's ever being used to try to victimize one group over another, this
Yeah.
is the kind of thing. It's right.
That's what
I'm
it
not
comes
gonna
off
I'm not
as a
gonna give
little
you
bit.
like this soft expectations crap and let you get away with it. I'm like, no, do you need to be aware that life's not fair? Every guy needs
Yeah.
to know that, because every guy's gonna come to a point where he is on the unfair side of the stick.
Yep.
Right? Like that's gonna happen. Now, do women get an unfair shake at a lot of things? Sure they do. In other places of the world, they definitely do. And their life's not fair across. We have slave labor in different parts of the world, for crying out loud. That the women voting is the least of my concerns. I'm sorry. But rights in a lot of places in the world too, they don't come free. It's not just imbued in you. So.
You know, it's funny because when I came across this, the first thing I thought about is there's some other podcasts out there who have commented on they kind of point out like women like diss men or have these things, these preferences for men that men can't do anything about. So like height, right?
Mhm.
There's a few other things.
The 666, so 6 figures, 6 pack, and 6 whatever. Which I had never even realized that existed until social media, and I was like,
oh,
"There's
absolutely,
people like that." What
yeah,
the
absolutely,
heck?
yeah. Okay, no, so like a lot of it has to do with like size, right?
Mhm.
So like whatever,
You taking some offense to that? Tim?
well, maybe. I am 5'8", so you know,
You're
Isn't
6
that the
foot in my
average?
book,
Wait,
Tim.
what's
Yeah,
the
thanks.
average height?
it's like 5'9" or 5'10" now
Is it
for
5'9",
guys.
5'10"?
Dude,
Give me a
it is.
sec.
It is in our lifetime when
Are we
we
talking
were
globally or in the U.S.?
U.S. Where are we?
Yes. What is it? Let's see.
If we factor in global, I'm tall.
You are, I think.
If we go,
5 feet 9 inches.
But 9.
Yeah,
Hey, I'm
it's
still
gone
3 inches barely above the
good for you.
average. Yeah.
Good for anyway.
Dude, I'm a basketball player. I'm short. When people are always like, Matt, you're 6 feet tall. That's tall. And I'm like, no, I'm 6 feet short.
Yeah.
I'm a basketball player.
Yeah,
5'7"
it's not
Steve
tall.
Nash
is
is
worldwide.
6'3". Steph Curry's 6'3", and he looks tiny on the court,
Yeah.
man.
I think Steph Curry looks plenty tall.
Yeah, it's only because
Um,
you're the same height.
Anyway, so going back to unfair, right?
Yeah.
The things that guys tend to prefer are things that women can actually control. Weight, looks,
Hmm.
you know, like
Attitude.
attitude, absolutely. And so it's interesting. So when we go back to like what's not fair, it's not fair that women prefer things that guys literally can't do a thing about.
Yeah.
Right. Although I guess now you can have surgery to get
I don't
taller.
wanna get into
See
that.
Dude, that's freaky, man.
I would
that was
never
painful.
do that.
Yeah,
However,
no,
I do
dude.
want to point out, like, I think, okay, where am I? I'm not even on the camera here. Hold on. I've been very negative about this author thus far. I'm kind of in a feisty mood. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I will point out, like, they're touching on things where the spin wants me to be negative, but if we were to change the phrasing, these would be very positive things for
Yeah.
people to learn. Like, I think everybody needs to be aware that there are inequalities in the world.
Agreed.
There are also, that's kind of what makes the world great, actually, in my opinion. Tim, you have some strengths that I will never have.
Sure. And
That
vice
is-
versa. Yeah.
But that's what makes the community aspect of the world exist. I kind of need you for part of my
Yeah,
life to
we
be
need
better.
each other, yep.
I need that inequality to exist for a
Mm.
good, healthy community. And that's one thing I hate because it feels like people treat inequality on every level, not on, because there are certain things that are wrong.
Yeah.
That's not good. But there are levels of inequality that actually make people appreciate others more instead of just thinking about themselves all the time.
And I
Sure.
don't know
Tim
if
and
that's
Matt,
what
I
she's
appreciate your
talking
skills.
about.
These are great. No, because that's not all what she's talking about.
Oh,
Look,
because you get on later. Yeah.
like
yeah.
here, look right here. In many parts of the world, girls don't have the same rights as boys.
Yeah.
It's pointed
Okay,
only
and
to
I'm like,
girls
that's
in many
fine for
parts
you
of the
to
world.
point out. Like,
And it
that's
says
great,
this
but-
isn't fair. It's important to recognize the inequality. It has nothing
Yeah.
to do with expressing how there are benefits to inequality. Nothing to do with recognizing, like, look, there's an inequality in the world that you might have the strength to shore up and take responsibility for and make change. These are things that men should do because men like to affect change.
Well, that's the entire concept and truth behind marriage. is-
exactly. So why not
filling
point
in
those
those gaps
aspects
in
out?
each
If
other.
we were looking for well-adjusted men, teach them how to
Yeah.
handle this and stuff. Anyway,
I mean, yeah, I think, and maybe what the author is going for, just giving her benefit of the doubt here, but maybe what she's
Always.
going for is like having this global understanding of like where you are in respect to where everybody else,
Yeah, and
right?
I'd be fine if, again, it didn't come. And I think the next one, I want to look at the next one then, but it does kind of
All right.
come across as
Bad at the
women
cameras right now.
everywhere are oppressed, and you men, you need to recognize that. And I'm like, I'm sorry, dude. Like,
well, this will be
are
good.
you kidding me? Like, look up the number of
It
of
might not be
college
fair.
graduates.
Hold on.
It's not fair. That's what almost we're closing in
Ah.
on 70% of college graduates are female, right?
All right. So
But let's look at the next one. For it might not be fair that men hold such power in the world, but it is our reality.
You know, it's funny because, and this cracks me up because, so in the medical field, this is absolutely not true. Absolutely
Teaching,
not
dude,
true.
Teaching.
Yeah.
I'm a male teacher.
Yeah.
That's like, I'm pretty sure it's like 8-2 or
Dude, you
it's
know how
7-3
many
at
teams
most.
I've been on where I'm the only guy? A lot.
all right, hold on. Let's read. I want to read what this thing says because that's the bullet. But let's. Oh, I hate when people are
And like Spider-Man says, with great power comes great responsibility. Teaching boys about the responsibility.
associated with the traditional male gender stereotypes is crucial for promoting healthy masculinity. It can help mitigate negative behaviors often linked to these stereotypes like aggression and emotional suppression while fostering a more balanced understanding of gender roles.
So, okay.
They had me for a while actually.
Again, it's not like
Until that last part of the sentence, like I was like, these are actually good things. Like,
Well, and here's the thing, right? Like, so people, I think modern culture labels things like aggression and emotional suppression. I will agree. Emotional suppression is not a good thing as a whole,
Yeah.
right? If that's your
but there's times where you do have to suppress
absolutely.
it.
If that's your standard operating procedure, that's a bad way to operate. Okay. But if you do that selectively, that's not a bad thing. Aggression now. Uncontrolled aggression
is
right
not
is a
good.
bad thing. I will agree with her on that. But just to label aggression, right?
Yep.
It's such a blanket like term, like aggression. I can be aggressive, and you can feel aggression. Also is subjective because I can feel you are aggressive even if I'm not trying to be aggressive, right? So, for instance, if I'm trying to persuade you, right, and I'm using different tactics. I'm trying to sell you on something that might come off as quote unquote aggressive, right? Even though I'm using good body language, positive body language, I have, good intonation, all of these things, it can still come off as aggressive, right? So there is a subjective nature to aggression. But I will say, if you want to like label something bad, uncontrolled aggression, which we do see with guys, right? Definitely more than girls. Uncontrolled aggression is absolutely bad, right? Road rage,
just fights breaking out over silly things, and
over dumb things. Yeah,
like
you
Packers
see
losing.
What?
Gotta fight someone over the Packers losing.
I'm sorry, I saw an opening. I was trying to poke. Okay.
But yeah, so okay.
So I changed my mind. I want to fight Mike.
That's not going well.
No, so I mean, okay, so if she were to add those qualifiers in there, I would agree with her on some of that stuff. But I think there is this natural like, oh, aggression is bad. Well, no, aggression in guys, like that's part of. I think it's a part and component of masculinity.
Well, you need it for defense. The entire idea of defense.
You need it for competition.
Is a huge part. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You absolutely need that for competition.
Well, and what drives things forward? That desire, that want to be.
Yep.
I mean, you look at any time we've advanced things forward as a society, it's that aggression to be better, to beat the other countries, to keep your country alive. Like that's what pushes it. Passivity does not breed anything. Passivity breeds destruction, right? The world's a treadmill. It's always going.
Yep.
And you're either running with it or you're falling off the treadmill, right?
Yep.
And so you need that aggression in your society to an extent, but again, controlled.
All right.
I mean, let's keep moving. It's okay to cry, to be sensitive, and to feel. I agree with that.
In many there's times where that's okay, but again, I remember my son when he was little and he started crying because he couldn't find a Lego piece. And I'm like, dude, no, you don't get to cry because you can't find a Lego piece. That's not okay. But it's a genuine expression of his emotion. I don't care. He needs to learn to control that emotion.
Absolutely.
I'm going to say, no, I'm not making fun of him. I'm going to be like, Declan, you don't need to cry about that, dude.
Yeah.
Nope. Because guess what? You can find that Lego piece. You just got to keep looking. But I don't want to. You know what I mean? It's like, no, dude, this is time for you to manage that emotion, harness it, and start using it for good.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep us on track.
You know?
We got...
Dude, we're gonna be fine. Your tears and vulnerability without cringing from the social pressures around me.
You are repeating. I told you. So again, we've already talked about that. Okay, scroll down.
Hold on a second. Right here, do you guys feel like she's talking about this from like her or the female perspective? Because I would say that is not true. I would say that women get turned off by guys that express this.
I was going to say that too. They tend to say, "Hey, we want this sensitive guy," but then when they do it, it's like,
exactly. What it's was it Brene Brown? I think it was Brene Brown who talks about how she has all this stuff for women, and then she had a guy come up to her after one of her conferences and is like, "Hey, I love that you do this for all these women, but I wish you would talk about the guys and this from a guy component." Because he goes, I think the quote is something like, because my wife and daughter would rather see me
die on my white horse than
and it's true, and I think it speaks to a component of humanity that is just built in, right? I think guys and gals want to see each other in a certain way, and when it
reinforces the roles. Like, why are
am I protector? You don't want your protector.
What do you want in a man? If you're a woman, you want somebody like even the traits of what women find attractive. They like a tall man. Why? Because it gives them a sense of security and safety and provision, right?
So Jamie brought that up literally the other day. She said there's because I was mentioning that to her, the whole 6 foot thing. She goes, well, I'm wondering if that's because they feel more protected when they're around a guy who's taller than them.
Sure.
Even though if you think about it, there's a lot of short guys who are tough as nails and they're
it has
tear me to pieces, right?
No bearing on it, but
dude, short guys are. I remember playing basketball against short guys. They kick the crap out of you because they're so stinking quick. Yeah, I'm referencing you. Don't worry. But again, I'm also a dude, and I'm kind of like, I've wrestled guys who are short too.
Yeah.
Jared Birch.
Oh, absolutely.
Jared.
We're going. There we go.
Don't
Okay.
worry. So many of these are repeated. So
The
you're
only,
going to start
the only
finding
thing I
yourself
don't
scrolling.
like is kind of like the language they have here, like this kind of stuff. I'm trying not to be overly
Sure.
negative of this person's viewpoint, but when I read the language that's written here, it definitely comes off as an agenda to me. If anyone wants to argue that with me in the comments, I would love to have a good time with y'all.
Here's my thing though, like you go and watch the Band of Brothers like documentary, and at the end Richard Winters is talking about how he's reading a letter from his grandson or whatever, and he starts crying because he's like, my grandson was like, Grandpa, were you a hero? And he says, no, but I served with the company of heroes. Yeah. And he starts crying. And you're like, no man would make fun of that guy for crying. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
well, let's move on. We've beat
this horse.
Yeah, we beat that. I was just pointing out that even though we're seeming a little hostile in this, I feel like the language that this article is written in, I could pretty much defend that this person has an agenda.
Yeah, for
if
sure.
they don't realize it, then they're definitely around a lot of people who are used to writing with an agenda.
Sure.
So no fault of their own. This is what they get clicks for. This is their job.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
fair game.
all right, what's the next one?
Yeah. There are no right ways for boys to act or right ways for girls to act. I would disagree.
I disagree, dude.
Absolutely.
I disagree. And I think someone left a comment on one of our videos when we were talking about like at what point does manhood begin, and his argument was, which was our initial argument, this idea of like when you realize someone else's life is in your hands and that you are responsible for that, whether it and I would like to I wish I could have I want to leave that guy a comment and actually ask a little more like, so what about like a single guy? Does it have to just be your family, or can you recognize, no, as a man, I need to protect my society. I need to protect the people in my city, and stuff like that. And so to me, I'm like, if you're not willing to protect the people and things around you, that to me is the truest test of a man. Like if I and maybe I don't want to go there yet, but I don't know. I think of like a true test of a man.
Let's try to keep this a little bit more on point with the actual article instead of going on to like what we think.
Well, she had mentioned that.
I understand that, but that's like what I'm saying is we're kind of also going off into like philosophical things and like what we all talked about. How about give exact points that you think of? Like, give me 3 bullets or what are differences on what is a right way for a boy to act and what is a right way for a girl? Yeah, protective. I'm saying like
responsible for the people and things around you. Taking responsibility for that and recognizing that.
Okay.
Like if you're not going to do that, I don't think that's like missing the foundation of masculinity.
You disagree.
I do, because I can take responsible as a lot of things. Like it's general language. I'm looking for specifics that separate between boys and girls. Like my girls have to be responsible for those around them. My daughter's responsible for Adeline. Adeline's responsible for herself.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. Again,
I know. That's
why
that's why I'm saying like give me like 3 nutshell, very like granular versions. Like if I were to say boys versus girls, I'd be like, even when we go back to basics, like boys are in charge of physical security. Women are in charge of usually emotional security.
That was my first example. That's how I said that. Didn't I say defense?
I think you did.
You did. I'm trying to get you to contract it down to like
just
bullet
did
points.
defense.
Well, and I mean, I honestly, like the first thing that comes to mind for me is respect. Like it is. I think one of the things, like a right way for a boy or a man to act is respectful. Like I don't think that can't go for women, right? But I think it carries a different weight for guys.
Yeah.
So that's just my 2 cents there. It's okay to feel the need to be physical. It's hardwired into your DNA. Sure.
Cool. I like it.
Neat.
My whole gender is a spectrum thing.
It's also okay to shy away from violence, gender spectrum, like everything else in life. Find healthy outlets for your physical
there
rather
we go.
than.
I like that.
Okay.
I like
that's a good one.
Healthy outlets for physical.
Yep, these are very good.
Masculinity isn't something you have to prove.
I disagree. 100% disagree, because here's the thing, man. Like guys, and part of the reason we're doing this podcast is because guys are aching to know that they're men.
Yep.
They're aching. Like, I mean,
we
honestly,
want proof that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing and doing it the right
absolutely.
way.
And this whole notion of like, oh, well, you on your own give yourself value and it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. Like there are components of that are good.
Yep.
But as a whole, like I want to know, like when I go into a group of guys, that I'm one of the guys, that they see me as a man.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's a huge thing. Respect is such, and that's why I think it's also hard for women to understand that is they don't understand that need for respect, which is kind of weird. And I don't even think I fully understand it.
Well, and mutual respect has to be earned.
Yeah.
Right. There's positional respect that should be given.
Okay, you're a human being. I'm going to give you a certain amount of respect. Sure. But then when I come around a guy who I know has sacrificed and given a lot, right?
Yep.
That's different than when I go around a guy where I'm like, dude, you live for yourself. You don't live for
you're a
else,
selfish douche. And,
yeah. I mean, I put way more weight and respect on somebody who is willing to look out for others and take care of them versus the guy who's like, yeah, okay, I have a bunch of money. I help no one and I hurt a million people on the way. You know what I mean? Like, to me, I'm like, okay, well, I don't really value you much. You just cared about yourself. You like that's not, and again, it goes back to that idea of, you know, what do we expect of men in our society and our function?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And men being defenders, protectors, crafters, builders, right? The guys who are rowing and pushing the ship forward, right? That's kind of how I see it. And there's various ways of doing that. It's not just one way.
Yep.
But if you're not doing that, that's where I think you're missing out on.
Yeah, and we could go into that for hours.
Well, hey, you know what? What'll be good is we'll have to look back at this episode and then maybe start picking some episodes from this that we can dive into.
Yeah.
From this one. So
okay, well, let's see here.
When someone says stop or no, you listen, especially when it's concerned about somebody else's body.
Sure.
Thank you. That's a normal thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that doesn't just go for guys. I mean, maybe I'm a little insulted that she.
I don't know. I've never once heard of a guy ever teaching a younger kid, no, if she says no, she really wants yes, and like that.
Not rape culture, Mike. Rape culture.
Once.
Guys are just born to rape.
I know.
People.
I'm like, the way people write about this, like guys are just out there like doing bad things. So I'm like, okay, there are bad men in the world. There are bad people in this world.
There's a
and the
lot
people
of really
stopping
good people.
them are usually men.
Yep.
In large. So like I again, this is the language like I agree wholeheartedly with the statement, but this is definitely coming from a specific angle and a specific thought. I feel bad for the author actually. The more I'm reading this, the more I'm like, you have been brainwashed to think that this is what men are like. Are you married? If you are, I hope you have a better view of your husband than you do of men in general. That's being presented in this argument.
Man, that's a good point, because I think if you are operating from this as your playbook, right, you have a pretty negative view of men. It must be, and I think the author at the beginning talks about how she has a son, and it's like, man, how do you? So you're already coming from this perspective. Your poor son,
yeah,
right? Like you think he's a piece of crap because you clearly have to teach. And again, like, I don't know the author, like, and you know, we're reading into this.
We're going based off the language they're using, how it's being presented.
But man, that's a terrible spot to operate. Like, why wouldn't you operate from, hey, I think you can be a great person. Yeah. I think you're gifted. Like, let's work on that. Yes. Look, you have to teach everybody not to do bad things. Yeah. Like, that's just life.
Yeah. Like, all these are pretty valid points. Like,
isn't that interesting, by the way, that you have to teach them to do the good things?
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to.
Oh, no, you're good. I was just going to say these all points could be made from a positive a point where they think positive of men, and it's emphasizing the positive attributes versus it seeming like it's the world sucks.
A lot of it is connotation, words being chosen, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I like
kind
the
of what
language
emotions are associated with those words. And when you're picking negative words consistently, you're trying to make me feel negative about something.
Yeah,
that's
so
why writers are trying to
it's okay to feel angry. Yeah.
It's okay to feel angry. Yeah. But you know, again, keep your anger is coming from hurts.
I appreciate. Okay, so like given the way this author is writing, I do appreciate that she said that, because anger tends to be a scary emotion. I think especially for women. Guys, anger is like our default emotion. So like anything,
and it's almost like a badge of honor when you're younger to an extent. I remember that a little bit. Like I remember making jokes about that, like the Swantech rage. Like all of us had major anger issues.
Yeah.
I had anger issues back then. Holy cow, dude! Jamie mellowed me out so much. She helped me. A lot. Yeah, but dude, I would. Oh man, I had especially.
And that's uncontrolled. So
no control. Yeah.
Right. But anyway, I just wanted to take a moment
to
appreciate
angry about things that should be angry about. The rest of this is like dark thoughts and hurt. And I'm like, I do think there are a lot of guys out there that do have hurt and stuff like that. But again, that comes under control. Controlling your pain it's not ignoring the pain, but controlling your reaction to it, I think is Mike, what's the next one?
Yeah, working on it.
You aren't defined by your gender role or cultural expectation.
So that's one of those. That's one of those like,
because it depends on what culture you're in.
you can be an astronaut if you just try really hard. You know what I mean? Like okay, it's a nice sentiment in the sense of, and I think the heart of it is like, hey, you don't have to do the negative things that whatever is around you telling you to do negative things is
and
right.
I'm fine with that piece of advice, right?
Yep.
But again, that whole toxic masculinity thing, I just can't stand that. I just don't think.
I think it's interesting that this thing references research at Birmingham City University. It demonstrates challenging gender stereotypes in classrooms and homes can help boys feel more comfortable. It'd been interesting if they would have actually taken it to the real extent of what they're saying and looked at countries where men and women are actually promoted with extremely equal opportunities in every lever to equalize the situation. Women prefer social roles, men prefer physical and
well, I mean, it still is in the United States. You look at construction, what I mean is, like, 90%
they're making the argument like it's better for them not, to challenge. It's like, sure, maybe, but the overwhelming majority of you men, you're going to choose a gender specific role in your culture. You really will. And women are going to opt into a gender specific role in their culture. It's across the board. And there's a lot of tasks and a lot of skill sets and a lot of jobs that across the world, men and women will always pick predominantly. Like there's going to be outliers.
Well, I mean, I'm a teacher. Like I bring that up all the time. I talk about that. But like, yeah, I don't think our culture would push me into that. But I think it actually helped that I had a lot of male teachers to look up to, and I had a lot of really high quality male coaches to look up to. But I'll throw this out there as well, though. Like, I've never felt uncomfortable in my position. I've never felt judged by other guys. In fact, I've always been, I've never had a guy negatively react to me being a teacher. You know what I mean? Like, I've never had a guy say like, well, you're a teacher, dude. Like, that's women's work. Like, I've never had that. I've always heard from guys like, oh, sweet, my son gets a male. Oh, cool. We need more male teachers. That's what I've heard. Like,
I'm curious about this.
I've never heard any negative,
kind of funny.
Negative responses to
We're coming out from the assumption that the gender roles are what we grew up with people telling us. But now if you think about what our kids are growing up with, the gender roles are like beta male. Like you should be submissive to the women. You should try to like, oh yeah, I'm just now thinking like that's kind of actually what's pushed as the norm stereotype.
Yes.
So sorry,
I don't
my
know.
brain just went off.
No.
Yeah, you are not defined by
like
the cultural norm.
I don't know. I've just never, and maybe again, it's also the school I'm at. It's a really good culture and it's a really good group of people. And like, I mean, I don't know. I've never felt.
It would be interesting. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good.
I think it would be interesting to dive into because teaching used to be probably a predominantly male.
No, most times
has
female.
it always been?
Look at like especially in like the higher education. No, was mostly male. Elementary and that area was mostly female. Yeah,
right.
The younger ages.
Yeah. So
the more
really
nurturing ages. Right.
Well, I mean, you could say the same thing about things that we say are typically women's, like women should stay in the kitchen. I'm like, no, a lot of chefs were men. In fact, it was like a woman cannot be a chef. A woman cannot run a kitchen. Like, that was a thing.
In Italy, I mean, guys cook. Like that's a thing in Italy.
Dude, I cook. I cook too. I started cooking, especially because Jamie's working with me.
This is Google's AI overview. Historically, teaching was considered more of a man's role in the early periods, but with the development of public school systems, darn you, public school systems, in the mid-19th century, it gradually shifted to become predominantly seen as a women's role due to factors like lower pay for women and the perception that they were naturally nurturing towards children.
What do you mean the perception? They are not.
I do get sick of that. That whole like it's not. Yes, it is. Like that is naturally.
Are there women that are not naturally nurturing? Absolutely.
Sure, but outliers do not disprove the generalization.
All right. So should I go
That's
back
another
to
thing. It's like somebody fell off the
it.
Empire State Building and survived, so all of us should be able to survive.
Yeah.
No, that's another fallacy. That's not how that works.
Yeah. The exception's not the rule.
Scroll it down.
You aren't defined by your clothes, car, bag. This is a good one.
Okay, good. Yep.
I 100% agree with this one.
You're defined by your character. 100% love it.
Yeah.
If you fall in love with somebody,
although I don't know, muscles that could probably be left off there. I mean, you can definitely be defined. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, your muscles are technically
you could have defined muscles, but you are not defined by your muscles, Tim.
It would be fun though to like talk about like, and this is one episode we should have like a discussion about strength where I'm like, because like I've met guys where I'm like you shake their hands and you're like they're not that big, but holy crap, dude, rock climbers like Mike, oh my gosh, that rock climbing strength,
wiry kind of
holy cow, man.
I got a buddy and he's I don't actually know how old he's been on here, Sam. I don't know how old he is. He's definitely older than me.
He's strong.
Dude, every time, so like he and I will we'll sit and pray like at Loyal or whatever, and every time he grabs my hands, they hurt.
Dude, yep.
Like they hurt. Have you
ever shook Jim's hand? My father-in-law, Jim?
Yes.
He's got those hands that like, good Lord, they're like sandpaper, dude. Yeah. Like he's done his whole life is just work on anything and everything. I mean, he was that generation. So,
absolutely.
All right, next one.
All right, give me a second here.
You fall in love with someone of the same gender, it's okay. I mean, I think okay. So let's do this. Okay, from the faith perspective, right, from a Christian perspective, we would disagree with that.
We can go through from each perspective. We'll start with like the religious perspective, so that way if you don't follow religion, you can tune out.
I mean, religious perspective, no, you're not doing.
Depending on what
God
religion you
defined
follow,
to do.
the one that we all believe in says no.
Sure.
If you find a church that says otherwise, feel free to.
Islam says no. There's a bunch of them that say no. There are some that are probably it's undefined.
Let's look at like social. Let's look at the economically.
Okay. What do you? Okay.
There are reasons why we give benefits to married couples that are
you want
heterosexual. Yeah, there's a benefit. It's the same reason we give tax breaks to companies. Sure. You're actually providing a benefit to society.
Sure.
So, I mean, if we really want to go, if you fall in those, is it okay? I don't know. What are we talking about? Societally, is it okay? Like, well, you'd be accepted in our society, sure, and others you won't. However, are you going to be as much of a benefit as a heterosexual couple? No, a couple, no. The birth rates are dropping off like crazy. We need them to people to reproduce and refill the population. You are not contributing to that effort.
Sure.
So,
no.
Just saying that there are ways to argue against this easily that have nothing to do with somebody's going to say hate and homophobic and faith and things. Like, no, there are practical reasons. There's also health reasons.
Sure, absolutely.
There are a number of diseases and health issues that come away from homosexual relationships that do not come away from a monogamous relationship that is heterosexual.
Well, and it's interesting. So the Way of Men, which is a book I read a little while ago, he kind of dives into this a little bit, and he talks about how without getting like too graphic or too anything in here, but he talks about how the reason that homosexuality is despised by the traditional masculine men is because of the submissive nature of that relationship, and that it is a betrayal of nature. It's kind of two like the points he sort of makes.
I like the betrayal of nature part.
Yep.
I'm curious. What was the word you used?
Submissive.
No, before that, it was like the men's viewpoint of it. It's
from a traditional, like from a, I don't know what I said.
I'll have to rewind it. I was like, all of a sudden I heard you say, I was like, I'm not that. I just don't think it's right. Like, in
sure,
the sense that it's not beneficial.
So the author of that book really takes an amoral view of.
So it's more of like a scientific, almost. Like
it is almost, it's more of a philosophical, like looking at men throughout history and why it's typically why typically men have such an issue with homosexuality. It also has to do with I can't shoot. It's been too long since I've read it. Those are just some of the points he brought up.
That's a good point.
Right? So
in other cultures, it's actually used as a way of dominating another man, and they also do it to little boys as a form of other stuff. So we don't need to get into that. But yeah,
what's the next one?
Sorry, I'm working on cameras. I'm doing terrible.
He's doing a bunch of things. He's trying to
so bad at my job. I'm actually talking today because I'm a little ranty. So sorry, it gets me distracted. All right, that was 14. Wait, hold on. What did they say? Blah 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 blah.
Well, and here, okay, so here,
whatever. I can just.
My last thought on this is, I don't care. Like, I just don't care from a personal standpoint. Okay, I like when you're trying to force different views on me or my kids. That's a different thing, right?
Yeah.
But like, I just don't like if you choose how you choose as an adult to act and who you want to be in a relationship with, that's your right. Like, I don't have a problem with that.
I would say in America, your rights should extend as far as they can until they infringe on somebody else's. Sure. So if you have a relationship or you're not infringing on my kid and you're not shoving that crap down my throat and all that stuff, or trying to groom my children, by all means, knock your socks off. I could care less. You're an adult. You can do drugs. I don't care. You're not burdened on me. I don't care.
Sure.
So all that thing. It's another reason why I don't like when people are like, that's homophobic. I'm like, well, no, because that's an irrational fear. There's categorically nothing to fear from somebody who's having sex with the same gender. That's kind of weird. But yeah, so I don't think any of us have this like hate or animosity towards somebody who does something we disagree with. We're pointing out that there are obvious negative drawbacks to a lot of these lifestyle choices. Yeah. Anyway, that's my.
What's number 16?
Trying to find it. Okay, 16. This one's good. I'm liking this. Respect is always in style.
Yeah, good.
100%.
Go for it. Yeah.
And you, like, what's interesting is you do see a lot of disrespect, but I don't think you see it as much between. Well, yeah, I think you see it a lot between men. Kind of like the disrespect.
For sure. Well,
like, hey, you're not manly enough. Yeah, or something like that. Like, I do get that aspect of it. But again, that's part of like the proving, the pushing. the testing.
There's I would say that there's a difference between
that and then just being
disrespectful.
Being a jerk.
Because I do think that that's something our modern culture really lacks is teaching respect.
Yeah.
Right. Teaching
100%
boys to be respectful. I mean, dude, you see YouTubers,
anyone being respectful.
Absolutely anybody, but especially men. I think.
Well,
go
ahead.
I was going to say, I think when guys are respectful, and you talked about this on the very first, like our intro, like when the guys in the middle school do certain things a certain way, it changes how everybody else.
The whole culture goes that way.
For instance, if guys are respectful, I think society becomes a lot more respectful, right? Just kind of, I don't want to say falls in line, but like tends to follow suit.
Well,
with that.
and it reminds me of, I think there's different aspects. I think there is that, absolutely. But I think the other aspect is we live in a society where bad people can abuse laws in order to get away with whatever they want. I think of that. I mean, there's those, YouTubers and TikTokers that go around and annoy people. Or there's a guy who's, I think it was in the UK. He'd just walk into people's homes and see what they would do. And I'm like, dude, if you did that, you'd be dead. Like,
here in America,
literally, there would be 15 shots coming your way, bro.
Dude.
Like that's it. And it's like, to me, I'm like, and that is totally, to me, I'm like, if you can't even respect my home, how can you respect me as a human being? There's a lot of people like socialists and communists who will talk about, well, someone's life is not worth your property. And I'm like, it's not just the property, it's the heart behind it. It's you saying, I will steal your car. I will take your way of getting to your job, which is your livelihood, which is your food, water, shelter, which keeps your family alive. And I don't care. Well, I'm more important than that. So that tells me, I mean, what does that tell you about that person within society? They don't care about society. They don't care about you. That is the antithesis of what a man is supposed to be.
Well, and our founders, like, there's a reason why they wrote the Constitution the way they wrote it, and it's centered around being able to own things. Right. Like being able to own personal property is tantamount to having rights. Because if I can't own anything, I have no rights. So I mean, it is.
But again, if you can't even respect my home or my place of business, not to throw a rock through my window because you're upset by something, and you want to fight capitalism by throwing a brick through someone's window, I'm sorry, you're not helping anything. Number one. Number two, if you can't, how would you? That brick isn't just thrown at my window; it's thrown at me. Right? Like, if you can't even respect my place of business, you'll tell me you'll burn down my business and burn down my home, but gosh, we love people. So when I'm on the street and starving, you're going to take care of me or something? No, right? They don't care about that.
No.
That's what they want, but they hide behind that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, people over property. I'm like, no. Like, you want my property? I'll give you my bullets. Okay,
right.
There's some of my property for you. Like, that's garbage. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's where I draw the line. That's why it's a completely fallacious argument, right?
Yeah.
It's a fallacy. People over property. No, I can still care about people and also protect my property, but you need to respect me as well. And if you don't, well, you can respect my firearms and my Second Amendment right. There you go.
If you have to convince someone to date you, they aren't the right person for you. Now, this is funny because I think that is, I'll just say this. I think that's a very female view, right? I think there's a lot of guys who part of the love story is
the
that
chase.
They won the chick over.
Dude, Jamie and I, we dated, and then she went off to college. We broke up.
Okay.
And when we broke up, she did it. If you know my wife, she's an extremely nice person.
Yeah.
Do you think she was just very obvious about that we were breaking
Absolutely
up?
not. Yeah.
No. Also, am I a good listener?
Absolutely not.
Especially at that point in my life? No. Especially at that point in my life? No. And so she ended up, I just remember, like, we would talk on the phone like every night for like an hour.
Yeah.
So in my mind, we're still together. And then I see pictures on Facebook of her with this other guy and they're holding hands. I was so mad. And I was like, oh man, I got so angry. And then eventually she left that college, came back. And that was, there had been enough time passed that kind of cooled off a little bit. But then we started hanging out again. We were hanging out at like school. We were helping out with the dance at the school we teach at now, where we both are. And that's we started hanging out again. And then she invited me to her house for like New Year's with her family and stuff like that. And then we ended up getting back together. And 7 months later, we're engaged. And then 11 months later, married. So,
yeah.
But that if I took this advice, Jamie and I wouldn't be married. And I wouldn't be literally with the person I've been with for coming up on 16 years.
Well, and
let's read the paragraph.
But yeah, read.
No, I don't want to do
games,
that.
all
I like
unsure,
just looking at the title.
wishy-washy, and then walk away.
Go for it, Mike. Why don't you read it?
Okay,
Read it.
so on some aspects, yes, I definitely agree with what you guys are saying. Women want to be pursued, men want to pursue. That's part of the game.
But I get what she's saying about like the wishy-washy.
Right
like,
here-
don't let ladies lead you on.
You kind of, yeah, my view on this, like, if I'm teaching this to a guy, it's like you better know what you want in the relationship,
Sure.
and that's what you're getting.
Well,
Like,
and I
you're
think
not
I
getting
need to,
played. And like, so some of this stuff right here, like the incompatibility, anxieties, stuff like that, like games, these are all, this is good advice. And it is definitely coming from like a woman's point of view.
Sure.
I don't think,
Well, and I'm wondering if she's pointing out that, hey, girls play games sometimes and they don't really want you, but they just like the idea of the relationship.
Sure.
It seems like that. Like to me, the first time I read it, that was my first reaction. Was what I gave you was kind of like, whoa, should I take this advice?
Right.
But then once I read through it again, my second thought was, or is she trying to point out that like, hey, you know, if a girl really likes you, she's going to make it pretty apparent. She's not going to be wishy-washy with you and play games.
well,
And it's kind of like, okay, I can't speak to every single relationship, but I do know that exists, right?
Yeah.
What do they call it? Friend zoned?
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff.
Like
But
drag 'em
I think
on
in
and-
general, this point is, it's not bad. It's just, there's
not
a lot
bad,
of
but
stuff
again,
you can
like,
talk around.
the pursuit aspect. What's the next one? Oh, geez.
It's normal to be curious about your body. They really take that as like a sexual thing or not?
Yeah. It's not dirty or sinful.
I feel like guys are more curious about their body. Like, how do I get that huge? Like, dude, you got jacked. What the frick did you lift?
That's
what
where
did
you went
take?
with that. That's good because at first when you said that,
Well, I'm
that
just
did
thinking about.
not
I'm just thinking
come
about.
off his muscles.
Well, I'm thinking it's funny that they
was
took
like,
it that
dude.
way. Because think about it when you're. Everything in our culture today is sexualized. That's what I mean by that, right?
Yeah.
You said curious about your body. I'm like,
Well,
think-
it says it after actually.
I know, but that's why I'm like, it's kind of weird that that's where you went with it. Because like you could take the same bullet and not make it sexual. Because when we're little kids, we look up to superheroes, our dads, people who can do these physical feats. They're
Sure.
actually kind of amazing. The human body is an amazing thing, and it's capable of amazing feats. So it's sad that everything
Number
is sexual.
18, though, I thought this one was really interesting. There's a strong social and emotional component to intimacy, and oftentimes girls feel it more strongly than boys. Absolutely agree with that, 100%. But I do think boys feel it as well, but I don't think they recognize it until they become a little more mature. But there is that link. That's why you save it for marriage.
Yeah.
Like, it's the truth. You can lie to yourself all about it, but I think when you wait for marriage, it's keeps it all within that one aspect.
Written by-
I've always heard it defined as this: when you go camping, you keep the fire where?
In the fire.
Yeah, in the campfire,
Oh,
right?
I was like-
you go camping, you want the fire where the campfire is supposed to be. Do you really want it everywhere else around the campground?
Sure.
No, that's how you like. Listen, we're in Colorado. What always happens? Almost every summer,
Fires, yeah, no,
wildfires,
absolutely.
right? And so the idea that fire, intimacy, passion should be kept where it's supposed to be, because when it gets out of that, it causes damage.
Well, but you're talking specifically like sexual.
Yes, that's what I was talking about. Intimacy.
I don't think she's talking
Oh,
specifically.
is she? I thought intimacy. It sounded like. I mean, she went from
Oh,
one
well,
to the
right.
other. That's what it seemed like. So maybe not. But
All right.
that was
so
my
it's social
initial
and
take.
emotional. There's a strong social and emotional component to intimacy, and oftentimes girls feel it more strongly than boys. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I missed the intimacy part.
You are in control of your actions. Yeah. It literally. Yeah. I mean, literally after that, she talks about.
Okay,
Big
well,
deal in
okay.
your
I'm,
life.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm lost on 19.
Yeah, 19. Certain body parts will be a big deal in your life, so take good care of them.
I don't get that.
What does
I
it
don't
say?
even know where this is. They'll want to be in the driver's seat from time to. Oh, sorry, I'm late to the conversation.
Controlling what you say and do. Remember, you are in control of your
Your
and
actions. 100%.
honestly, like that's good.
I think that's
Yeah,
a good one
that's
too,
very good.
especially, I talk to my boys about this at school. I don't get into graphic detail or anything, but I always tell them, I'm like, listen, guys, you're in junior high.
Mhm.
You are getting to that point where you like girls and you want to be around girls. Well, here's the thing. How you treat them is going to carry on to high school. I teach at a school that is K through 12. So kids know you and they remember you.
Yep.
And I tell them, I want you to be remembered well. That's what you want. You want to be remembered well by the ladies in your grade, to be respectful and all of that. I said, because it will carry on for the rest of your life. You don't want to have that reputation to overcome. So treat the young ladies with respect, and yeah.
Well, and it kind of goes along with like our touchstone, right? Like,
Yeah.
the
Again, control.
And honestly, like I do think it is smart to point this out for guys, because I have to talk to my boys about controlling like their emotions,
Yes, their anger.
their anger. Yeah. Like I have to talk to Miles and Xavier about it all the time, especially Miles.
And they don't
right
even
now.
have sisters like
Exactly.
Declan does, where
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
getting.
Yeah. So it's like, dude, the conversation is always, hey, you can feel this way, you cannot act this way.
Yep.
Right. And so I think it is important to teach boys that you have to control what you do.
Well,
like your actions are under your control.
And it's also a lot of that is, you know, we talk about this at school a lot when we talk about bullying or when we talk about even teasing.
Yeah.
How do boys usually tease? Is it verbal?
Not typically.
What is, like, think about it. You're walking through the hallway, you see your buddy near his locker. What do you do?
Yeah, but when you're playing basketball.
No, hang on, Mike.
Yeah.
Mike, you're walking through the hallway, you see your buddy near his locker. What are you doing? He's not looking your way.
Yeah, you punch him.
Give him a little shove.
Yeah. I'm glad I didn't have
give
my
him a little
locker
punch,
near
right?
you.
It's physical. There's a physical aspect to what we do, right?
Sure.
There's a physical aspect to how we act as boys, physical aspect to even the interactions and the teasing. But you got to realize that girls are not that way. I talk to Declan about this all the time. I'm like, dude, you got to realize, like, he'll wrestle with his sisters and he will hurt Tenley and Ellie all the time. And I'm like, dude, you got to realize you're smaller than Ellie, but you're actually stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm like, dude, you got to realize you're gonna hurt Tenley. It doesn't matter what you do. Like he'll wrestle with me, and I'm like, dude, you can't hurt me the way you hurt, right? Like you can't do that.
Yeah.
And so it gives him an outlet. And it's actually, there's a really cool article, and I'll see if I find it, but it's about boys wrestling with their dads and how important that is because they learn their strength and they learn how far to push themselves. It's actually, Declan has, what's weird is with me is the opposite problem. He just like curls up in a ball. I'm like, come on, fight back. You know, with the girls, he'll give it to him and take him down. I'm like, dude, chill out. You know?
So I don't know, like probably a year ago, I started playing this game with my boys where I call it the lockdown game. So I wrap them up
and see if they can escape.
Yeah, and so I've told them, now I'm gonna have to stop playing this because they're starting to get stronger.
Yep.
But I've told them, I was like, well, if you can get out of here, I'll give you $100, right? And so, dude, the boys will come up to me, and obviously they want the $100.
Yeah.
Right. Like they're not getting it. I'm just telling you right now, like they're not getting that because they're not gonna get out. But
they're not gonna get out.
but. They come up and they're like, hey, can we play the game? Can we play? Like they love that, right? Because it gives them something to test their strength against.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Oh yeah.
But there is the control aspect.
Yes.
Of that too.
You got to teach them it's okay in that moment. But again, it's like almost anytime you look at guys who teach MMA or guys who are like, it's always about control first because you can't spar with somebody who's out of control. No one's going to want to spar with you. You have to be in control.
Well, and if you're not in control, you're going to get your butt whooped.
Yeah, by a lot of people, right? I mean that there was there was a UFC fight like that where the guy kept going, and then in the next fight, it was either UFC or something else. I can't remember, but then the other guy just destroyed him and said it was kind of like basically payback for what he did. But yeah. What's the last one, number 20? Don't be afraid to be vulnerable.
Sorry.
And again, like, okay, so it might feel scary to be vulnerable, especially as you get older. The cultural stigma. I see. My issue is I don't think it's always cultural. I think men like to keep things inside to an extent as well.
I would say that, I mean, this isn't bad advice overall. I would say the caveat would be like, you need to have a safe place where you can be vulnerable and know where that is. I don't think men should be vulnerable. It is something men should be cautious of. I think this language is kind of scary, actually, because like you shouldn't be afraid of it. You should be vulnerable everywhere. Yeah. That's very bad advice.
But again, I would love to look
into that.
People
are going to take, especially as a man, like not as a woman, but specifically as a man, if you show that you are vulnerable to the wrong people,
they're going to take advantage of it.
Not only you will be taken advantage of, but the people you are responsible for could also be taken advantage of. So this goes into like victims in crimes, right? So they call it security hardening, right? So things like lights, things like bars on windows, things they are visual deterrents that keep that help prevent crime. Okay, and I say this because guys, right? Part of in those scenarios, right? Guys who walk tall, guys who walk confidently, guys who are looking around, right? Those are more hardened targets, right? And so I think
wolves don't prey on the strong ones; they separate out the weak, right?
Correct. And so for guys, Mike, your point is well said.
Yeah,
you do have to have a safe space to be vulnerable with, right? And that's why it's really important for guys to have close guy friends who can give good advice and provide that space that they can be vulnerable in, right? And same thing, you know, like, I mean, honestly, if you have a spouse or a girlfriend, like, you should.
I think to an extent, yeah. But I mean, I'll be honest with you, my wife doesn't want to see that. She wants the, but again, like, it's not like I can't talk to my wife. I'm not saying that, by the way, but, you know, as a husband, I do want that perception of, you know, being the defender.
Sure.
And because she wants that for me too.
Yep.
Now, that doesn't mean, you know, I can't ever talk to her about something.
Sure.
But I think there are lines there where, again, I think you kind of mentioned that idea of, again, I want my wife to be attracted to me. I think if I went to her and cried every time I felt a little inadequate, she'd probably be like, okay, chill out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes you have to kind of internalize that and say, okay, I may be feeling this right now, but that doesn't make it right.
It's a little bit, There's
so many times where, like, I'll get an angry email from a parent, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, did I screw up as a teacher? Am I really just a screw up? You know what I mean? Like, there's times where you doubt that. And it takes time to, but I don't voice that to anybody, right? Because I know it's not real. So, and there are times where, like, you know, I push that down and sleep on it, and the next day I wake up and I'm like, I answer the email, and all of a sudden I get a really positive email back, like, oh, okay, thank you for dealing with that. And I'm like, okay, I did it. No, I did it right. I don't. Sure. And then the next time that comes up, all of a sudden that doubt is a little quieter, or it doesn't even exist. Sure. You know what I mean?
I do. I think
I think there are some times where I mean, there's been times where I've voiced to my wife, like, oh my gosh.
I think that what is, and that's not a bad response. No. I will say a healthier response is probably like having a group of people, or having a mentor, or having somebody you can go like, hey man, am I way out of line here? Like,
well,
this
that's
is my
why
thought.
I have a principal at school who I trust. I have 2 principals at school I trust. And then I have other teachers. But yeah. So but that would be why I didn't bring that to her. Does
exactly.
that make sense?
Well, and I think,
but you have to have that space though. But see, I have that space, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, and there are, like, knowing your audience too, right? Like, so for instance, if you have a buddy who's, let's say, struggling with alcohol, right? You're not going to go talk to him about alcohol.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's not going to be a conversation you're going to have. Not because, you know, you can't have, like, you're doing it out of respect for him and you understand the impact. Same thing with your wife, right? You understand that sharing certain things in certain ways with her is not going to be helpful for her of her view of you.
Yep.
Right.
Or even helpful for her in general. Right.
Yeah.
Or it's something that, like, again, I think there's some times though where I overthink things and it doesn't even share because honestly, it's not that big of a deal.
And that's a good point.
I'm taking it as a big deal in the point. And, like, if I do share it with her, all of a sudden it becomes something big when it didn't even need to be shared because it wasn't big.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And that is a point too.
So,
I think we live in a time and culture.
But again, that control. But control means it doesn't mean you don't pull the trigger. It means you know how to pull the trigger, right?
For sure. Or when to pull the trigger.
Yeah. It's when to not pull the trigger, when to go full auto, and when to go semi-auto, right? So
well, and honestly, like, we live in a culture now where it's word vomit all the time. It's sharing everything with everybody, right? Like, you look at social media, what do? Camera on, dude, it makes me cringe. I know that the younger generations like it or whatever. I can't stand it because I just don't care about everybody's every second of their life. It's just, I don't think it's that interesting, and it's not valuable for me to see.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, overall, some decent pieces of advice for just humans in general. And I think there are some pieces in there where I'm like, that's part of what we teach in masculinity. At least I think so. The control part, there's a lot of that in there, a lot of aspects of control. I do think we exist in a society where there's a lot of feminizing of men.
Yep.
And so I think that's where I struggle with it, is I'm like, well, we're seeing men having massive issues. We've been trying this for 20 years now, pretty much, where we're trying to push them, and we're not seeing good things. We're seeing worse things.
Correct.
So that tells me what we're doing is not right. So that's why I tend to push back on a lot of what she's saying, is because I'm like, I'm sorry, 50% of kids are raised in single parent homes. And I'm sorry, most of those are single moms. And how many teachers do they run into are going to be male or female? Well, they don't get a lot of positive male reinforcement. Then it's, what music are they listening to? What podcasts?
A lot of our assumptions about the writer, like, I kind of wish we would have just gone through. I'll put this up. I kind of wish we would have gone through, like, first in general, because even at the bottom, you get a glimpse of, like, she does have an agenda. She does have a viewpoint of men that's coming from, like, look at this.
domestic violence.
These are good things that she's speaking out for this, but she does have a paradigm that she is viewing men through. I mean, that is to this, which is like, okay, this is the view you're going through. I get how you get to a lot of these answers,
sure.
Without necessarily malice, but this is the world you are living in specifically, and it's not the world at large necessarily.
And the lens that she sees men through maybe is tainted by bad experience, right?
And there are bad men out there.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. And so, I think, and this is why multiple viewpoints, this is why it's so important to have a mom and a dad in right. You have
to get that masculine and feminine perspective. Yep. So, any final thoughts, guys? I thought that was a pretty good discussion. I thought we got through a lot there.
I mean,
I think we have a lot to go off of in later discussions, to be honest.
Well, and I think there's probably 5 or 6 things that we touched on that could literally be an entire episode,
or that we have had an episode of.
Yeah, and so I guess my final thought is this: as we continue to move forward with our project here, I hope that people who watch this start to question when they see these things, right? Because if you take it as face value, right, a lot of it sounds good, right?
Yeah.
A lot of it sounds like, oh, that's nice. That's a nice thing to say. Yeah. That's a good, people should be nice to each other.
Dive in deeper, there's
the implications for men, right? And when you're writing directly to men, right, you have to consider all of the implications.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to understand the base, the very baseline of what men are supposed to be.
And again, there wasn't anything in there about being tough. It was only tenderness.
Yep.
And that's why, again, you brought it up. You need a mom and a dad, because I'm sorry, the dad is going to try to teach his kids some toughness.
Yes.
My wife was she goes, I think it's so hilarious how touchy-feely you are with the girls. And then with Declan, you're kind of all right. I'm like, well, yeah, but he needs that. He needs those boundaries. He needs to be told, nope, don't cross that line, bro. Don't do it. You know what I mean? And he needs that bit of toughness to him. And I'm sorry, women don't want a weak guy. They really don't, unless they want to be the dominant one. Doesn't sound like a very healthy relationship.
I'll be honest. I mean, I think if people were truly if you're a good person, I'll just say it this way: if you're a good person, I think there are certain things you're going to want out of a partner.
Yep.
Right. And those things are going to more often than not align with
the cultural stereotypes usually, or at
least more of masculine or femininity.
Masculinity or femininity.
Right. So a woman
which we've detached those from cultural society, right? That idea of there is a more overarching truth to masculinity and there's a more overarching truth to femininity. So even when culture's trying to influence them, that doesn't change the truth of what they actually are. Yes. And I like that. I like us to try to make that distinction. So, Mike, any final thoughts? Sweet. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We had a great time. And thanks for sticking with us. If you have any comments, any thoughts, leave them below. We'd love to hear them. And we'll see you in the next episode, Beyond the Beard. Hope you all take care.
Travel well.
When this silent, you'll be alone. Far from friends in life, you'll spend your evenings getting stoned.